The following podcast is provided by Era Living, innovator in residential retirement options since 1987. And welcome everyone to Answers for Elders Radio Network. And we are here with Era Living, Aljoya, Thornton Place, and that is in the Northgate area of Seattle. And we're very thrilled because unlike a lot of communities out there, Era Living features their residents. And I love hearing the stories. And most importantly, I think it's important for our listeners to understand from people that are considering going to senior living, what it's like and what it has been like for the residents that live there and what their process was about. And we're very honored today to have one of the residents of Aljoya Thornton Place with us. And that is a wonderful lady by the name of Elaine Berman. And if you go on our YouTube channel, she's in the most beautiful colored turquoise. And I have to say, you just look beautiful and nice to meet you, Elaine.
Thank you so much.
Elaine, tell me a little bit before we get into specifically from your experience with Aljoya Thornton Place. Tell me where you came from. I know you came from Chicago, didn't you?
No, I came from New York. Actually, I came from the East Coast.
Okay,
where I had lived the first 21 years of my life. At age 21, I got married, and then my husband and I were in a variety of places for the next 15 years. And at about 1969, we moved back to New York to Long Island, which was going to be temporary.
Yeah.
However, it turned out to be from 1969 until 2015.
Oh,
so
my goodness.
A lot of things happened in between and kept me there. And I taught school the whole time. So
good for you.
And
good for
coming
you.
to the West Coast was a total, I don't know if you've been east or middle of the country.
Many times.
It's so different. On the West Coast, it's like two different countries. And learning about the native population here, the Native American population, the indigenous peoples, was all new to me. And I had learned so little of that when I grew up in the East Coast. And I'm sure that's true of the Westerners.
And yet we from the West Coast, when I go back east, it's like walking in buildings that are 300 years old. We don't have that out here. So there's that side too that is really interesting about the different parts of the country. That's for sure.
And I went back just 2 months ago for a visit to friends and so on. And I walked through the city and I said, my Lord, they're all tall buildings. Where's the trees? Where's the plants? In New York City, it's Manhattan and it's built up. And I was just shocked to not see any greenery.
So you've turned into a real Seattleite now.
Well, except for the weather. I'm still not used to the weather. When I first came to town and I was living in a motel for a while, and I walked around with a shopping bag all day long because I never knew when I went out in the morning which season I was going to end up in later in the day. And I would get on the bus, and next to me would be someone in an anorak and boots, and across from me would be someone in a short sleeve shirt and sandals.
True.
And I still find that, and that was just totally shocking.
Welcome to Seattle, right? So, Elaine, you came here and obviously had a process, but when you were considering moving into senior living, I'm curious, how many did you visit it before? What was your process like?
Well, my son moved here with his wife a year before that. And that's when I decided in 2016 to sell my house. And so I didn't know what I was going to do. He said, I think it's a good idea if you go to a retirement community. And I said, start looking for me. So I went online and I went to your place, a place for mom. That's where I started. And I filled out a whole questionnaire, and you start with about maybe 35 choices. And I found at least 20 that were not satisfactory. And I wanted to be somewhere that would be diverse and that would have good walking grounds because I love to walk and would be close to shopping and so on. And so I really narrowed down to about 10 places. And my son did a little looking before I came out to visit. And then when I came out, I went to about 5 or 6 places and narrowed my criteria down a bit. So, and when I found Aljoya, first of all, we then had a shopping mall. We no longer do, but that was a light. And then to have gardens here to walk around and be far from building construction, which now we are near, but It was just such a lovely area, in addition to being a wonderful place.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so convenient to everything now with light rail, where it's
Right.
so near you.
Yeah,
You
we
can
traded
go
them all for
downtown, you
light.
can go anywhere.
Right. We traded them all for light rail, and that's really an improvement. Yeah.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So obviously, you visited before. Tell me a little bit about what your experience was when you first walked in.
Well, I just like the look of the building. I like the fact that my dad had died many, many years before, and he was in a nursing home, not a retirement home, for just about a week before he died. But you walk in those places and everyone's sitting around in a wheelchair, looking very depressed, and the whole building is just depression. You walk in here, everything is lively, and everybody's doing something, and there's exercise going on, and there's a swimming pool, and just kind of activities all over the place, and people vibrant as far as into their hundreds, and they're still vibrant and active. Just the whole atmosphere was a welcoming one.
Yeah, we talk a lot about, how often people think that if I go live in senior living, I'm going to be depressed. It's the opposite. What we find is when you're alone and you're isolated at home watching TV all day, which is a lot of seniors are doing, what's happening now is this ability to, have new experiences and make new friends and work, have a life of activities and things that stimulate your mind. And that's an important thing also. Now,
if I had ever had to go through COVID in my own home, away from everybody, it would have been disaster. COVID here, 3 years of being waited on every day, things appearing on our home screen, activities every day, food every day. I mean, it was just being confined to an apartment was like still having the whole universe open to us.
Yeah. And that's the thing I think that, is so important to have that kind of a support network around you too. So I know without a doubt, you probably made a million friends, because I can tell you're that kind of person. You're very easy to know and talk to.
You lose a lot of your friends that you've grown up with and that knew your early married life and your parents and so on. But you gain new friends who don't have that, but they're new friends. And they have all, can share experiences.
That's wonderful. So I'm going to ask you a really kind of interesting question. What's the easiest and the hardest part about moving to senior living?
I think the hardest part is, for me, because I came from the other end of the country, was leaving all my friends behind and moving in here. Almost everybody here has friends in Seattle, family in Seattle. And so they have the outside experiences. So I had to make up for it by making all my friends within the building, because I just had one son here and no other family. So that, I think, was the hardest part. But the easiest part was getting used to a new routine, enjoying a wonderful cuisine here.
Yes.
Marvelous staff. In fact, the first 2 weeks, I was 5 months in Seattle before I actually moved into Aljoya. And during that 5 months, friends back home said, "Why are you waiting to move into retiring home? What are you going to do in a retirement home?" So when I first moved in, the first week, the first night, I think, I sent them on Facebook. I took a picture of the dessert tray. And I said, "I can't decide what I'm going to have for dessert tonight. What do you think I should have?" And then a few days later, I took a picture of the whole menu and said, "Should I choose lamb chops or prime rib, or should I go into fish?" And I did this for about 2 weeks. And after that, they said, "We think you're in the right place."
Yeah.
So I knew, reach them through my stomach.
And, that's so important to have that kind of a joyful experience. And certainly, I know, without a doubt, I've been to so many of the properties that Era Living has, and there's this certain energy of, I call it love. It's this feeling of that there's just caring everywhere. Like you talked about, there's no bickering, there's no anything. They're really invested in the people that live there, and they love their residents. And I think they select them carefully so that they will be, a good fit in the community. And I think that's the important thing too.
I think the staff is selected the same way, because the staff
absolutely
is second to none. They're marvelous. Yeah.
That's so awesome. So I have a question. If somebody is thinking about, maybe I should check out a retirement living option, what kind of advice would you give to them based on your experience?
Well, I think if you're an active person and have an active life, first of all, you should come into a retirement facility young enough to be able to enjoy everything. I see a few people moving in that are really beyond that point. They're too old, both mentally and physically.
Yeah.
And so they're really paying for an experience that they're not getting. And I think if you like, whether it's games or whether it's reading or what book clubs or whether it's walking, whatever, if you like a lot of things, come in at an early age and take advantage of as many things as you can, because that's the beauty of Aljoya. They have all kinds of interests for all kinds of people.
Yeah. And I can only imagine that, as when you come in, I think the most important thing, and you probably agree with this. Yes, you had your son help you, but you were able to make the decision. You were the one that could test things out, and you didn't have to be in a situation where a lot of people that go into senior living because they have to be released from a rehab center or something like that into senior living, and they don't necessarily get the choices that you had. Would you say that that's possibly true?
I think so. I remember years ago, I lived in my own house. I had a big house in New York. And I said, I want to stay here until I'm 100. And I don't want to ever move. Don't ever put me in a retirement community. That was my advice to my son. And then when he decided to come out here, and I was at that time 84, I said, I think it's time to sell the house and move out of the house. He said, what happened to 100? I said, well, I'm tired of worrying about the roof and worrying about the snow. I said, it's time for someone else to take care of me. And I said, but I said, whatever you do, don't find a place where they play bingo. I said, I will not go in any place that plays bingo. And I was here for about 3 years, and it was a Sunday afternoon. And my son said, what are you doing today? And I said, well, there's going to be a bingo game. And I said, I think I will go. So he just howled. He said, well,
I'm sure he did. I'm sure he did.
Yeah,
Elaine, you were such a joy. Thank you for being on our program. And, I know that there's people out there that will get a lot of good wisdom from your advice.
I hope so. And I hope we get a lot more good people while I'm here and after I'm gone. I hope there's a lot
well, good blessings. Thank you so much for being with us.
For the interview. Bye-bye.
Good. And for those of you that are checking out senior living, please, if you're in the greater Seattle area, East Side, etc., go to ERA living.com and take a look. They're pretty amazing. And thank you again, Elaine. Era Living is locally owned and operates 8 premier retirement communities in Seattle, Renton, Mercer Island, Bellevue, and Issaquah. From vibrant, independent living to compassionate assisted living to secure memory care, Era Living respects and honors older adults by enhancing the quality of their lives. Learn more at eraliving.com.